Hello Dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 4 Part 3, Moving Toward Revolution. The main idea behind the civics lesson is the belief in government by the consent of the people led Americans to establish a government dedicated to preventing tyranny and protecting the rights of its citizens. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you will be able to describe how and why American colonists organized to oppose English rule, and summarize the arguments in the Declaration of Independence. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. If the colonists had inherited their tradition of representative government from England, why did they become dissatisfied with English rule? Why did relations between the colonies and England get worse, eventually exploding into the war that led to American independence? Answering these questions involves looking first at how tensions developed between England and the colonies over the issue of representation and government. England believed that Parliament represented all English citizens, including the colonists. The colonists, on the other hand, believed that they were only represented by their own legislatures. The colonists pointed out that they could not vote for members of Parliament and that no colonists were members themselves. They also noted that, unlike the colonial legislatures, Parliament had little understanding of the colonists' needs. The colonists and the English government also had opposing views on colonial trade. Parliament permitted the colonies to trade only with England. The colonists wanted the freedom to sell their products to any country. Despite these sharply differing views, many colonists still considered themselves loyal English citizens. In fact, they helped England defeat France in the French and Indian War, which ended in 1763. The colonists celebrated the victory, not knowing that their loyalty would soon be tested by new taxes forced on them by the English government. Facing huge war debts, Parliament decided to squeeze money out of the colonies through taxes, mainly on trade goods. Outraged, the colonists protested that they should not be taxed unless their own representatives approved such taxes. The colonists believed, following the ideas of John Locke, that taxation without representation was taking people's property without their consent. Soon the cry of "no taxation without representation" was heard throughout the colonies. To make people pay the taxes, Parliament gave the royal governors greater power. Colonists accused of breaking tax laws were thrown in jail. Parliament ignored petitions protesting the taxes and the governor's actions, claiming that it had the power to make laws for the colonies in all cases whatsoever. The cloud of tyranny seemed to be growing darker in the American colonies. At first, the colonies did not join together in protesting Parliament's actions. Having quarreled with each other in the past over boundaries and trade, they were not used to working toward a common goal. To inspire cooperation, some colonists organized committees of correspondence to pass news from colony to colony about how England was violating colonists' rights. Eventually, many of the colonial legislatures saw the need for a united response to Parliament's threats. They called for a Congress, or formal meeting, of representatives from all the colonies. In 1774, delegates from 12 colonies met in Philadelphia for the First Continental Congress. The delegates hoped to convince the English government to respect colonists' rights. To pressure Parliament, they pledged to cut off all trade with England. Then they agreed to meet the following year if the situation did not improve. Far from improving, the situation got worse. By the time the Second Continental Congress met in 1775, colonists in Massachusetts were already fighting English soldiers. Delegate Patrick Henry argued for independence, stating that the war had already begun and that there was no turning back. Many colonists feared independence, however. Even if they fought and won, they thought, what future would they face without the security of being part of a strong nation like England? The writings of Thomas Paine changed many people's minds. In 1776, Paine published his pamphlet titled Common Sense, in which he presented his argument. To always be running 3,000 or 4,000 miles with a tale or a petition, waiting 4 or 5 months for an answer, which, when obtained, requires 5 or 6 more months to explain it in, will in a few years be looked upon as folly and childishness. There was a time when it was proper, and there is a proper time for it to cease. There is something absurd in supposing a continent to be perpetually governed by an island. England belongs to Europe, America to itself. With proper support for separation from England increasing, the delegates to the Second Continental Congress finally voted for independence. However, they still had to convince some Americans of the wisdom of a break with England. The delegates also wanted to tell European countries why the colonies deserved to be free. Therefore, they appointed a committee to write a Declaration of Independence. Among the committee's members were Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams. Jefferson was asked to do the actual writing. The ringing phrases of the Declaration of Independence capture many of the colonists' beliefs about natural rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As did John Locke, Jefferson described these rights as unalienable, meaning that no government has the power to take them away. Further reflecting Locke's views, Jefferson described the purpose of government. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, the people give power to their government as long as it protects their rights. If a government abuses its powers, the people may change it or do away with it. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute or create new government. Jefferson then listed the ways in which England had ignored the colonists' rights as English citizens, proof that England was trying to rule the colonies with absolute tyranny. The Declaration concludes with the signers pledging to support it with our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Adopted by representatives of the colonists in Philadelphia on July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence proclaimed that these colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. So that's the way it is with Lesson 4, Part 3, Moving Toward Revolution. At this point, you should know that disagreements developed between Parliament and the colonies following the conclusion of the French and Indian War. Americans opposed the efforts of Parliament to tax the colonies to pay for the debts incurred during the war. Colonists organized to oppose English tyranny, and the Declaration of Independence relied on the ideas of John Locke and the Enlightenment. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of civics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons. See you!